Hi guys. It may be a little late, but here we are for this weekend. So a couple things to note for this weekend. We are going to be doing a modified small group this weekend because it is baptism Sunday or baptism weekend. So it's super exciting. So there are actually just as many people getting baptized on Saturday as there are on Sunday at 11. So that's super fun for all the services. So we will be taking the kids into baptism. If you've been part of that before, you know it's a neat experience to bring the kids, and if you haven't, you'll see it's really fun to bring them into the main service. Some of them have never been in there before. Some of them, it's like they're in awe sometimes of what's happening. And so there's a lot of kids being baptized that have gone through our starting point class and that have crossed the line of faith and are celebrating now in baptism. So we definitely want to celebrate that with them. So the weekend, the services for us will look like sort of typical in the front end. So we'll start right away at the top of service hour, and we will do our first 10-minute pre-large group, small group. And so in that time, they are going to be decorating bags. So everyone will do the same exact thing for first through third grade. And first and foremost, they'll put their name on here, and then they should put something about the 10 plagues in Exodus. I think it's chapter 5 through, I think it goes all the way through chapter 12 of the plagues. And then they can decorate different things. You can intro the lesson a little bit, continuing on from last week as we talked about Moses and Moses being born, Moses and mom sending him off in the basket, the Pharaoh's daughter finding him, and then his calling through the burning bush and God's calling on his life. So you can kind of recap all of that for those who may not have been here. And then you can start introing kind of set up the scenario, if you want, of the Israelites for God's people, but they were living in Egypt under the Pharaoh, and God was calling Moses to lead the Israelites out, and they were slaves, and you can kind of talk about all that. If you're not familiar with that story, make sure you're reading it ahead of time, because it's so intriguing, and it's just really the start of this journey as God's story is represented through the Israelites, and they're wandering in the desert, and it really is telltale of the future of us wandering, looking for Christ and this promised land, and all of these things that we're about to discover with the kids. So definitely take time to kind of become familiar with that if you're not already. So all that to say, they should be decorating their bags during that pre-service time and or pre-large group time. And we definitely just want the bags to say something about the 10 plagues in Exodus so that their parents kind of fully understand what it's entailed, and just make sure names are on these, because that's going to be super important. Then we're going to go to a large group. Dan Moore is teaching this weekend, and so he will be teaching on the 10 plagues. We will not do any music during our large group. And so we'll jump right into the large group time. Each of you will get a bag like this, and you are going to want to make sure that you're sitting amongst the kids. So when you leave your pre-large group, small group, go and sit in the middle of your kids. We should be doing this all the time, never adults standing around the back of the room, except for the ones that kind of like monitor the door or help with that. But this week especially, it's super important, because this is going to be as Dan's telling the story, you're going to turn to your small group and do hand out things with your bag. So you're definitely going to want to be sitting amongst your kids. So if you can be helpful by sitting there appropriately, being prepared, knowing what's in your bag, and being ready to go with that would be super helpful. So as Dan teaches, you'll follow his lead. So one plague, he might say, okay, turn to your group and take that one out. Or he might do a couple plagues in a row and then talk about turn to your leader. So definitely follow Dan's lead on all of that. So please be familiar with what's in the bag. So let me just show you a few things, or I'll show you all the things. These frogs are for the plague on frogs. Let me pull these all out. Okay, so water into blood is the first plague, and so that's going to be a Kool-Aid thing. If you were with us this summer, we did like a whole food plague thing as we talked about that. This one, though, is too good to not do again because it's the whole concept of literally all of their water system in Egypt turned to blood. So these are obviously all things that they're taking home. There was the gnats. So for those, we're taking some liberty, but I have these little plastic, disgusting bugs. And then flies, also more disgustingness. If you're friends with me on Snapchat, I sent you this thing this week as I was counting these out. And I was like, my job is weird. I counted gross looking flies this week. There is the livestock. Death of livestock. So obviously there's like swans and stuff in here, but we're just going to go with that for price point. Boils. So these are actually gumballs, if kids ask. Clean hands were not used. Gloves were not used when these were counted out. So I would encourage them not to eat it. I said frogs. Hail is going to be marshmallows. You can give each kid one of everything except for hail. They can have two of. I think I have enough of those. For darkness, I have these strips of paper, and you can kind of have them hold them over their eyes and imagine what it would be like if the whole land was dark. And then locusts. I have these amazing locusts, realistic looking things that my office has been grossed out about all week. And then lastly was the death of the firstborn, unless they placed the blood of a lamb over the doorstep. So I have these little sticky zombies, if you will. I think the kids will really like them. I don't know if that's weird or what, but they actually glow in the dark also. But the zombies represent that, and then the whole idea is for them to really hands-on learn about these plagues. Are the plagues, is it the most important thing to know about salvation, whether or not there was lice or flies or whatever? No, but what's important is to see God's redemption through the story and to see God's work in the story, and even down to the last plague of the death of the firstborn. And the angel of death would pass over any house that had the blood of the pure lamb on it. Represents when Christ came and he was that pure lamb that saved us from death. So it's really important to see this story play out in the Old Testament as a foretelling of what happens in the future. So we're obviously still in the deep throes of Old Testament, and so it's super exciting to see where Moses is going to take us in the coming weeks. So after we get through all 10 of the plagues and the kids have filled their bag completely, Dan will wrap up large group. So if you could just be sure to help bring those kids back around every time you turn and pass something out. Be helpful to Dan as he brings them all back together so that we can get through our large group, because we don't want to miss out on any of that. And then at the predetermined time, we will line up as we wrap up large group, and we will head to the auditorium to see the baptism and to celebrate with our church family. So we need everyone on point for this, and the larger the service, the more we need you on point. Obviously, our goal is safety and security first. We don't want to lose any children, as always, but we really do just want to make sure, specifically even now the upper deck is open as we walk to the balcony. So we just want to make sure, even if kids see their parents, even if parents have pickup tags, we are not releasing to any parent outside of the Quest Theater. Let me say that again. We do not release to any parent outside of the Quest Theater. I don't care what they do, what they say. We are going to take the same amount of children into the theater that we take out. And so that is going to be super important. So if you can do your part, we will be pre-assigning people to lead us in and lead us out, and everyone else needs to be in the group along the way. And when we go to the auditorium, we will have the kids sit 2 to a seat. Our goal is to be as unobtrusive as possible when we enter. So we're going to enter quietly, and we are reserving the smallest amount of seats as we can, just to not take seats away from other people who may be coming, to be respectful of that. But so we will kind of have kids squeeze in as much as they can, 2 to a seat. They can stand if they want. Usually the congregation is standing during baptism. I don't know what that will look like. The songs will last. It'll go for about 15 to 20 minutes that we'll be in there, and then we'll exit as soon as baptism is over, and the main service will finish that song that they are singing. And then the main auditorium will be released. So our goal is to get back to our room before that happens. If we get stuck in traffic, our goal is to always hold off any and all adult traffic so that the kids will walk through. Security is fully aware. We've done this many times. We've never had a problem, but we just definitely need you on alert and to be aware of what's going on. And so sometimes that timing gets a little tricky. Just people leave early, or the song ends quicker than we thought, or baptism goes longer than we thought. So we just need all hands on deck for that. It's really fun when I'm doing baptism interviews, how many kids speak into the fact that what kind of triggered them to even want to get baptized is because they saw baptism happen, and then they went to starting point and they realized that they had never asked Jesus to be their personal savior. And so it's a really cool experience to be part of. So be praying for all of the people who have made a decision to follow Christ and are celebrating this weekend. Thank you for being on the team and for helping us make all of this successful. Read up on your 10 plagues so you can be ready to go, not just only with the crux of the story, but the application as to why that's important. And I will see you soon. Have a great day.